Thank you, Bezawit, for the wonderful music. So good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for the rest from wherever you are tuning in from. My name is Yvonne Boya. I work for UNESCO ICBA as the research consultant for the KIX project. I'm glad to welcome you here today on our third session. I believe we have learned a lot since we started 2 weeks ago. And today, I believe we're going to even learn more, even as we continue. So thank you and welcome. So Bezawit, I'll ask you to project the screen, please. Please put it in a PowerPoint view, full screen. Okay, thank you. So thank you so much. Today is our third session, and as you are aware, we're going to be having 8 sessions. In this 8th session, community of practice participating policymakers will discuss approaches to strengthen, we'll be discussing approaches to strengthen capacity for implementing reforms in competency-based education in your national education systems or teacher education institutes. So for today's agenda, this is how the day is going to be today. For the first session, we're going to have welcome music, which I believe we enjoyed, at least I did. And then I'm welcoming all of you to today's session. And so in the next 15 minutes, we're going to have a questions and answer session, and participants will reflect on the key concepts relating to competency-based curriculum and competency-based education. And this will be led by Cosmas. After that, we're going to have Kenya's experience on designing a competency-based curriculum. And we have a keynote speaker invited from Kenya. So she'll be taking us through that in 15 minutes. After that, we'll have a plenary discussion to reflect on Kenya's presentation and how members can relate this to their own experiences. I will also have discussions on some frameworks to get the development of competency-based education, competency-based curriculum lesson plan. And this is coming as a result of a request from majority of us. During the last survey that we took, a number of us requested to be taken through the competency-based curriculum lesson plan. And so we're here to guide you through that so that at least your answers can be answered. Your questions, can be answered. After that, we'll be going into our breakout sessions. And the breakout sessions will be to discuss the lesson planning for the implementation of CBC, particularly in secondary schools. As we are aware, most of our countries are now just transitioning to secondary schools. So in our breakout discussions, we'll be looking at how do we plan for for CBC in secondary schools. So the schedule of community of practice, as I said earlier, we have 8 sessions. And so for the 8th session, the first one was mapping core competencies for students and developing competency-based curriculum. The second session was on implementing competency-based curriculum in secondary schools. And the third session today is supposed to be the role of experiential learning in secondary schools. And as I said earlier, we're also going to combine that with lesson planning. After that, we'll have a session on integrating ICT in competency-based curriculum. And that will be our 4th session, after which we will take a 1-week break so that we can breathe. And then on July 7th, we will resume with classroom-based formative assessment for competency-based learning. And then on 14th, we'll be assuring quality in competency-based education through data generation and usage. And on 21st July, we'll be looking at effectively strengthening teachers' capacity in low-resource context. And we'll wrap up with implementing competency-based curriculum and approaches in teacher preparation education and professional development. So what do we expect? We expect you to develop a strengthened understanding of what works in competency-based learner-centered education in heterogeneous context according to practice and data. More policy and practice options in competency-based education, and also learning partnerships between policy actors, educators, and researchers within and across the countries. So allow me to welcome all of you to this session, and I look forward to very engaging session, given that it's not the first one, it's the third one, and we really hope to learn from you. So thank you, and allow me to welcome Cosmas for the next session. Cosmas, you're welcome. Thank you. Cosmos, I don't know whether you're speaking, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, thank you for welcoming me in this session. And now in this session, you are all welcome so that we continue with our discussion on how are we going to develop and implement competence-based curricula in basic education systems in Africa. The discussion is centering on, I try to find, even if you are talking about lesson planning, every time when we plan, we are focusing on the experiences. Because when we are teaching, we say, what is the prior experience of the learners? And now maybe let us try to discuss a little bit what comes in mind when you hear competence-based. Immediately. Maybe you can take at least 2 minutes to write in the chat box so that we can see what comes in mind when you hear the term competence-based.
Cosmos, I believe whoever
Hello?
would like, so hello, I'm saying I believe if someone has would like to speak, then they're encouraged to raise their hands.
Yes, they can raise their hand for discussion, but I needed at least just 2 minutes so that they can write in the chat box. That will be important. Already they are already writing so that at least we get understanding on what we were talking about. Now, while you continue writing, what are we expected of today? For today's sessions, we are expecting the following: to demonstrate some understanding of key concepts guiding implementation of CBC. And if concepts alone cannot help us, but also we will also look at demonstrating the understanding of preparing a lesson plan for implementation of CBC. I can welcome 2 or 3 to respond. If you can raise up your hand, if you have anything from what comes in mind. I see people talking about skills and knowledge development, to solve real life problem. I see some people are talking about knowledge, values, and skills that enable one to perform tasks. Development of learner competence, which will enable them to survive in their communities. all these are important when we are talking about competence-based. Maybe anyone, if you have any comment, you can raise up your hand so that we can welcome you to contribute if you have anything more than what you have written. Just 1 minute. Yes. While we continue, and while you continue pondering and writing, because today we will have a lot of sessions to discuss much in the next part of when we are discussing about developing a lesson plan. Let me try to continue with this, and please continue writing at the same time listening. Now, also, I'm reminding you for the questions for a long-term assignment, which are also available, but still we need to continue at least reminding each other. We had some questions for a long-term plan. One, what are the factors influencing integration of experiential learning in the competence-based curriculum? How do you integrate experiential learning in the competence-based curriculum? How do you ensure integration of experiential learning in the curriculum? And we asked you to prepare a simple plan to orient colleagues on integrating experiential learning in CBC. This is for session 3, and I hope you continue discussing in your group, in your countries, or in your groups that you might have thought of. Now, as we said, when we are talking of the competence-based, I'm trying to take from Kenya, because today our experience from Kenya, they say when we are talking about competence-based curriculum is conceptualized as a curriculum that emphasizes what learners are expected to do rather than mainly focusing on what they are expected to know. That means we have some outcome-based, they are learner-centric, and we are trying to see how do we make our curriculum prepare the people we want. And if I was lucky to find some information from UNESCO. UNESCO, they have told us 2 things, that when we are talking about education, we are talking about the 4 pillars. That is, we want this somebody to learn to be, to learn to know, to do, and to live together. In the area learning to be, that one, this person develops some independent judgment, sense of personal responsibility, and others, as you can see. At the same time, during implementation of sustainable development, education for sustainable development, UNESCO came up, added another one important thing, that apart from learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, learning to be, we have to make the learner to be able to transform oneself and society. I find this emerging from what we are discussing and what we have shared in the chat box. We find that if we need to implement a competence-based curriculum, that means we are attaching directly to UNESCO requirement that require an individual to be able to know, to do, live together, to be, and transform oneself and the society. And this requires at least something that we call competence-based, because a competent person, how competent is this person able to live together? That means can understand others, can respect human dignity, can be a responsible citizen. These are very important things that we are trying to discuss for our today's education. Now, out of this, we try to see core elements when we are trying to look at the competence-based curriculum. We say the first, we must describe which competence do we want to develop, a description of competence. And we have to go another step, practical activities for students, and also a means to assess the competence, and also a strong support, facilitation and varied content, and also a standard by which the student could be judged as competent. Now, maybe let us go back to maybe if there is anyone who can contribute in how do we implement this competence-based, and how do we see the link between the competence-based and what the UNESCO is talking about, the pillars of education. Because if we are implementing the pillars of education, then to me, it seems like we are implementing the competence-based education. Maybe let me hear some from you. Maybe Nyakalo, can you tell us something? Yes. Welcome, Nyakalo. Hello? Nyakaro, Rejoice. You are welcome. Okay, anyone who can contribute into this, because today is not my session, it is our session. To me, I look things at that. Okay, when we are saying we want to train people in competence-based, that means we are trying to talk, preparing a whole person as an individual. Now, if that is the case, then we have to prepare this to be able to be, to know, to do, and to live together. If we prepare people in that particular sense, to me, I'm taking it as we are preparing people to be a competent person. And above all, we want these people to be able to transform oneself and society. And how are we doing? What is our experience now in terms of implementing these issues? Anyone to contribute? Hello? Maybe because of matter of time, we can contribute through the through the chat box so that we can continue, because now today we are going to discuss more with our people who are saying this should be the lesson plan for developing for implementing competence-based curriculum. Now, as I said, I feel these are the core elements in the competence-based curriculum according to our discussion, that we have to define in a curriculum which competence, what practical activities, how are you going to measure the competence, how are you going to support the development of the competence, and how are you going to judge that already this is the standard measure for saying now this one we have developed a competence. And the other thing, when we are talking now, the focusing, that is a competence-based curriculum. Now, when we come to a competence-based education, first, it is an approach to teaching. That's the way we see. It is an approach to teaching, learning, and the assessment that focus on students' demonstration of learning outcomes and the attaining proficiency in particular competence. And we can say it links the demands of the work market and the outcomes of the educational system. That means it is interlinking what is in the school and how do we make it to go into the society. For example, now we see we have a lot of challenges, unemployment, as if the society do not have problems. That means we say, okay, where did we miss? We remember when the development of the DACAM, development of a curriculum, that we are used to, it came after looking at the graduates coming from the colleges were not competent enough to perform to the society. And now what comes in, they had now to say, okay, how do we develop a person who, after completing, after graduating, will be able to perform the best and to provide the service. We call now the service education according to experiential learning. Now, competence-based education, we can say it's a model. It is centered on the student, focused on mastery of competencies, and actually basis on learning outcomes. That means if we want to prepare somebody, we say, okay, this one is competent. What attributes are we going to look at? What the society looks like? And now this actually gives us a very important room when it comes that we want to prepare somebody who can transform, not somebody who knows the content, but somebody who can transform the content into the real life challenges. We say it is learner-centered. Why is it learner-centered? It is learner-centered when we are trying to focus on the competence-based education. We try to see the learner-centered. Why? Because both the teachers and the learners, they create knowledge at the same time, together. In the teacher-centered, knowledge and the experience are coming from the teacher going to the student. Now, in the competence-based, we are saying both the teachers and the learners, they all experience at the same time, they do assessment at the same time, and in that way, the teacher now is becoming a facilitator and the enabler, creating enabling environment for a competence to be developed. These are some of the concepts that we are seen to be discussed, and more so that we feel we have something to share. But of course, it is important that also we hear from you whether you find our thinking might be different. Maybe anybody, if you have something you can share to us, you are welcome. You can raise up your hand and share. Hello? Hello, Kevin?
Thank you, Cosmos, for your nice presentation regarding the three important concepts. I think, given what you have just said, I think the three competencies are very much linked and very important for one, for the competence-based education really to happen. For me, I think while we talk about CBC, is really like putting together the competencies, mapping the competencies, and trying to organize them in such a ways that they can inform learning, but also assessment. But I think that is not enough if we don't have like learner-centered approach, which happens in the classroom. This is really what is happening in the classroom. So you might have very nice document, CBC document, which talks about the competencies that are required, but that is not enough if the teachers won't be able to implement learner-centered approach in their classroom setting. So I think we need to emphasize the idea that, yeah, the documents might be nice, but we really need to have teachers who are conversant and able to facilitate learner-centered approach. And it's really this idea that of bringing students together, creating an environment for them to learn, and the environment for them to interact with the materials, which are very relevant to what the objective of learning, and having that rigorous but also formative assessment, and trying to make sure that the learning outcomes are attained at the end of the day. So I wanted just to make that connection between the document that we call curriculum, CBC document, and this practical way of implementing it, which is this approach called learner-centered approach. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin, for your contribution. It is true that we can have a very good document that this is the curriculum we are implementing the competence-based. But then the question is, how are we implementing? As I said, there are these core elements. How have all these core elements have been tied up together? How do we describe that competence? What are the practical activities done by the students? How do we assess? How do we provide the support? And how do we judge? Because sometimes you might have competence, but the way you judge that competence is different. Let me maybe welcome someone. Just I want to mention a name. I don't know whether I will be doing it is correct. Mfo Maseatile. Mfo Maseatile. Can you tell us something about what we are talking? Maybe you have some experience, you can tell us something. You are welcome. Nyakalo. Okay. Ruben, you are welcome. Ruben Gresham, welcome.
Thank you, the presenter. Thanks for the nice presentation. Of course, competence-based is much of the practical and mainly works well with the science subjects, whereby after drawing the learners in the theory, they have also to display their skills through practical. So there is need for more time for the learners to do practical. For example, in agriculture, you need to develop a curriculum which will engage most of the learners in the practical work. You can tell them how to control pests, and they have to demonstrate that one in the field, and then they have to be assessed in the way they are treating or they are controlling the pests in the field, other than answering theoretically. Likewise, if they are dealing with the chemistry, you explain theoretically, then you engage them in practical. There are different ways of doing practical. There are some of these which are mobile labs, as well as sometimes they may also use the ones online whereby a learner can download the procedure and has to do that one using a computer, and that is also the practical. Thank you, over and out.
Yes, in that day, I'm Paul Masiadil. Hello.
You are welcome, Mufo Maseatile.
Okay.
And Mohammed, you just wait, you will come.
Okay. To add on and that, in practical activities, we are saying that, like in that day has already said, learners must be engaged on different practicals in order to see that the content can be applied practically. Like in the case of agriculture, when, say, for example, we are doing vegetable classification, there are different classes of leaf crops. You go with them there, and then they are engaged in different practicals to see that all these are leaf crops, but they are different. We have, maybe you can have spinach, we can have lettuce. Yeah. So the application of the practical activities enable the learners to be hands-on, to do what they have already been taught in class. Like in design and technology, they'll be given the content in class, and then they do, maybe they design the chairs, the tables, so that they apply what they have been taught in class. That is what I understand by practical activities for students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That the knowledge we want should be that one someone can apply. That is a very nice contribution, and that is we go learning to be, learning to know, learning to become, and learning to live together. Now welcome Mohammed Hassan.
Hello, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cosmos, for the presentation. And my question, it is question somewhat. It is about, I think, CBC is about teaching and learning and assessment. And there is also something, there is also competencies, those are, or outcomes, those are in the policy documents or frameworks. So my question was, is that what makes the curriculum competency-based curriculum, is that the approach or teaching and learning or assessment, or it is the competence that we are writing in the document? For example, for Uganda, they can say we have competency-based curriculum, and what is really in the field is different from what is in the document. So which one we can decide whether this country is applying content-based curriculum or outcome-based curriculum?
That is a very nice question. Maybe it is a question for discussion. And to me, I can try a little bit that when we are trying to say we are implementing a competence-based can be seen directly as to how people in that particular country tackle the transformation, can solve their own problems, can be able to be creative, innovative. And if there is no such things are not happening, then what we are saying competence is in the document and not in the practical sense. I was in one of the countries when I was doing some of my studies. When I met in that particular country, I asked to, I managed to have a student, class 5 student. When I asked, what do you aspire to become? He said, I want to be a businessman. Which type of business are you going to take? I will be a tourist. Why? Because all people wanted to be happy. A class 5. How are you going? In order to do a business, what will you do? I will establish my own company. Do you know how to establish company? Yes. How do you establish company? I will just go to municipality and take papers and then write. And after that, where am I going to get money? I will go borrow to the bank. This is a class 5 child. Now, if you look at that particular time, to me, I say, okay, this person has competencies and he knows exactly what to do. Otherwise, let me welcome Nelly Matthew.
Thank you, Dr. Ari, and thank you for the good presentation. Maybe to add on what the other presenter was commenting, that competency-based curriculum, it's not only applicable to the science subjects or what we may prefer them to be very practical, but we are saying that competency-based curriculum is applicable for each and every subject. In languages, it can be applicable in humanities. For instance, when you're talking about subjects like social studies or maybe history and citizenship, we can also have activities that engage learners even to be able to have like civic dialogues. And you know, civic dialogues, they can also call upon community members within their surrounding. Then they can talk about the issues that are affecting their community by engaging the people in the community. And by doing so, yes, they are learning from, a humanities subject, that is maybe history or social studies and all that. By doing so, it becomes really, really practical, because as they're doing that, they'll come up with solutions whereby they can be able to plan how to even solve some of these kind of challenges. So competency-based curriculum actually cuts across all the kind of subjects or learning areas or even disciplines that are offered. Thank you so much, and over to you, Daktari.
Thank you for your contribution. And there is a question, of course, out of what you have presented in early just now. Is it CBC for science subject only? Maybe people can respond in the chat box as we go on. And my time is too short, but I like the discussions that are going on. And because what we want here is not too much material, but what we want is to see how we can implement and where we went wrong so that we can correct, and maybe where we are doing right so that we can strengthen, and maybe what needed to be added so that we ensure that what we are preaching for CBC, what we are implementing in the teaching and learning really comes to solve the really social challenges that we have. Orizi, you are welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. I was just going to emphasize what somebody has said, learning experiences. You know, we organize learning experiences to be able to achieve some learning outcomes. So how we organize the learning experiences in competence, we involve the learners more. We allow them to question, we allow them to lead the process. We only guide, we only facilitate, we don't go to tell them. Let them find out, let them give us answers, whether they are wrong or right. Us is to guide. So that's how you get them to get the competences that you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we try to see, as we are saying, in the learner centered, and the difference. You can see those arrows. We can see that a learner-centered approach is just a philosophy of education built on constructivism. Constructivism, which places learners and their needs at the center of all educational endeavor. That means when we have the learner here, we have to see what is all surrounding. The education system has to look at how these learning experiences really help the learner to develop the needed competencies. And of course, maybe we can go in the chat box again, maybe at least you can write what comes first in your mind when we are told this is experiential learning. You can just write in the chat box because my time is a bit short, and then we can discuss later. But when we are trying to talk of experiential learning, we are talking of these things. And why am I I'm linking the competence-based education, competence-based curriculum, and are tied up with the experiential learning? Because when we are trying to look at anything, we are trying to look at experiences and not more. That is our core area. We are looking at experiences. And when we are trying to look experiences, we say it is where we will have the learning by doing. We cannot have the learning by doing if we don't have experience. What we do today, what we are, we had some people who had some experiences, and those experiences have been passed over, and then we modify. That's why we have this cycle, the concrete experience, the active experimentation, reflection, and also abstract conceptualization. Maybe Kevin, you can add something there. You are welcome. Kevin.
Thank you, Cosmas, for that. I think we have another segment where we are going to talk more on the centrality of experience when it comes to implementing competence-based curriculum. But I think what we are saying here is at the heart of implementing competence-based curriculum is really taking consideration of experiences of the students themselves. And this speaks to what is familiar in connection to their context, and trying to build on that to generalize, but also broaden their understanding, but deep understanding on their experience in connection to the learning objective of the day, or learning objective of the session. But that is also not enough. You need to see, as a facilitator or a teacher, as you implement competence-based curriculum, really to see the application of what students have learned based on the experience that they reflected on. So the idea is really to have them think about how they can apply what they have learned. And this is not just for, you say, for more practical details, in taking them to the practicals. I think that is also one way, but another way is having them conceptualize their context, think about something they can be able to do, think about the workplace application of the things that they have learned, and giving them space to speak about the way they see they can be able to apply what they have learned in a concrete situation. So thank you. I wanted just to add that this idea that students have to learn from experience, but experience is not enough. They have to reflect on experience, as John Dewey says, and have to have activities for them to broaden their understanding, but also to see application of what they have learned. And this is not just for science subjects, really. It's for every subject. There are so many applications in different subjects, but the important thing is for the teacher to be able to create the conditions of learning that could help learners to think about the application of what they are learning in every subject and in each topic. Back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I'm not preempting you, but I needed your support for here. I know you have your chance to tell us, especially you and Muhando will tell us, how do we develop a lesson plan now that focus on competence-based curriculum? And maybe that one will give rise to discussion. What are we doing now? And what should we improve so that we do what is needed? Thank you so much, Kevin, for your contribution. These are some of the features when we are talking of experiential learning. We have to mix. Some people say, okay, when we are talking about competence-based, content is not important. Who told you? Content is there, but content now becomes a tool for developing the competence. You have to ensure engagement. You have to re-examine the value. Which value do we want to develop? We have to reflect on the experience, create emotional investment. That, okay, that's why we're saying, you remember when we are talking about the learning to become, learning to be, learning to know, learning to live together, and learning to transform. When learning to transform, that means people have to develop other things that are very important, that they have to encourage a big picture in the perspective. And this is all about competence-based. And of course, these are some of the things where we can find
We lost the sound, huh?
Yes, Cosmos, we lost you for a moment.
Dr. Cosmas, we're still not hearing you. Are you muted?
I had some internet interruption, but now I'm back. You hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Now, when we are trying to look at the competency and the competence-based education, we see first the term itself, competence. When we are looking at the competence, we find that we have some few. We have the experience, we have the knowledge, we have the skills, we have the behavior that people have to develop. We have to performance that we can measure, we can judge, and we have a goal set that one has to meet. In this area, we are trying to say experiential learning is a typical shift of curriculum from the teacher-centered to learner-centered. And also we see that the role of the teacher is now not collecting too much content and pouring into the student, but it is now creating the conditions that the student can experience in the teaching and learning process. And the implication for the teacher education now is to express experiential learning, because now I want to welcome my people to continue, but then at least some of this will be shared. But in the role of experiential learning,
Hello, Dr. Cosmos. I think we lost you for a moment. Dr. Cosmos, could you repeat yourself? We lost you for about 30 seconds, I think. Yes, now we can see your screen.
hello? Hello,
Yes,
do you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
I was
Cosmos.
saying that in the final things that we are trying to look why experiential learning is important in CBC, because we are saying that it links theory to practice. What people are learning in the schools should be applicable in the general life. And also it increases the effectiveness of learning and also makes learning to be relatable. People have to relate what is they are learning and what is all about in the real life. And sometimes you remember one day I said, sometimes maybe we have created a curriculum that prepares people to the world that never existed. Because if we are preparing curriculum, we are preparing people to solve the social challenges that are experiencing. Why today we still have a lot of challenges and the people are not going far. And I think this one will come into the session when we hear experience from Kenya and the lesson plan presentation. Now, let me welcome my friend from Kenya to give the experience, and after that, maybe that will, to me, it is an over, but this is over for now, but we will continue sharing in the chat and sharing in the WhatsApp and sharing everywhere, and this discussion should continue so that we meet what we need. What we need is that, to me, I feel our education system has to look at what UNESCO has already told us, that we have to prepare people to be, to become, and sometimes be able to transform oneself and a society. Thank you. Welcome, Kenya, to give us your experience on how you are implementing these issues in your country. Welcome, Nelly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cosmos. Let me share my screen.
No, we are not hearing. Can you please
Hello.
speak louder?
Hello.
Yeah, hello, we are hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Okay, good afternoon. I hope you're able to hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, can you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so I'm Nelly Machu from
Please, you
Kenya.
can put it in presentation mode.
Pardon?
Put in presentation mode so that we can see well what you are presenting.
Okay.
At the bottom of the presentation.
Pardon?
At the bottom of the presentation. Yes, that one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm there. Thank you so very much. Now, I'm Nelly Machu from Kenya. I work at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and I'm here to just give an experience of how we are experiencing experiential learning in Kenya, especially because of the new dispensation, that is the curriculum, the competency-based curriculum that we are implementing in Kenya. And I'm so very happy that Dr. Cosmas has shared quite a big overview, especially in terms of experiential learning, what it means and how it can be implemented and how effective it can be. Maybe I just want to start by saying the area of focus in this talk that I'm going to have is just looking at the concept of experiential learning that already Dr. Cosmas has done, the stages of this experiential learning and application of this in Kenya, and maybe the kind of benefits that we may have. The way Dr. Cosmas has pinpointed is that experiential learning is the application of theory and academic content to real world experiences, such that the way he has concluded and said, we should not prepare a curriculum that, for people in the world that has never existed, but let the people that we are preparing the curriculum for be able to solve the challenges that they are encountering on day-to-day basis. That way, then the curriculum will be very, very meaningful. So we are saying, in terms of experiential learning, this can take place in the classroom, it can take place outside the classroom, it can take place in the community. Why am I saying in the community? Because even the learners that we are teaching in schools are part and parcel of the community. They face the challenges that everyone else is facing from the community. So the curriculum that we are designing should be able to help the learner to be able also to solve the challenges that they are facing on day-to-day basis, bearing in mind they are also citizens and they are also facing the same kind of challenges. So the competency-based curriculum in Kenya focuses actually on experiential learning. In the experiences, learners are able to develop this kind of core competencies. And for Kenya, we have 7 competencies. And according to even what Dr. Cosmas explained, that a competency is not just about only one skill or acquiring only one skill, but it comprises of the knowledge that learners gain out of the content that they're going to learn, the kind of skills that they gain, even the attitudes, even the values for them to be able to perform a kind of a task or even to be able to perform what they're supposed to perform in order to address a challenge or in order to make sure they achieve their goals. So in Kenya, for us, we have 7 core competencies. One of them is communication and collaboration. We are saying that we need to encourage learners to work as a team. And as they work as a team, they are able to make sure they work together, exchange ideas, give a chance for one another to be able to take turns even when they're doing the task. And for that purpose, if they're able to do that, then they can achieve a task because they have a common goal, they're sharing a common goal, and they're pooling their resources in terms of knowledge and what they're able to do together to be able to perform a task. Then the other one is critical thinking and problem solving. We want to appreciate the fact that the learners that come to our schools, they are not just blank slates, that they have some kind of information, they have the knowledge, and so we should present opportunities that will allow them to critically think and be able to solve a challenge or a problem by applying the kind of knowledge and the skills they acquire as we teach them, such that the knowledge that they acquire is able to help them even to think critically and solve a kind of challenge that they are facing. For instance, what Dr. Cosmas pinpointed, that a child in grade 5 could even explain that he wants to become a business person and was able to explain the steps into becoming a business person, that even the money, he knows where to get the money from. Those are the kind of learners we are talking about. Then we make sure that we have those kind of opportunities that prepare the learner for such kind of exposure. Then creativity and imagination, that we want the learners to be able to be very, very innovative. The learning experiences that we are also giving them, they should also expose the learner to be able to be very, very innovative. They use the knowledge that they have to come up with very innovative ideas that when they are implemented, they can really be very big kind of projects that are also going to be very beneficial for them. Just as we are saying, the world that they want to have, so they can use that education in terms of that. Then there is citizenship. We are saying that the learners themselves are citizens. And so if they acquire those kind of citizenship kind of competencies, they know that they belong to a society. They know that the challenges they are facing, they are also part of those challenges that the society is facing. And therefore, they can use the knowledge, the skills, and every kind of competency that they're achieving from the education they have to be able to solve those kind of challenges, that they feel a sense of belonging in that community, that the learners are not in a different world while other people are living in a different world. So this one can be achieved if we do it from the education perspective, that the kind of experiences that we are doing are also exposing the learner to be able to become very competent in terms of being a citizen, a responsible citizen. Then there is digital literacy. Digital literacy or use of digital literacy is very, very key. And so we are saying here, even as we do our teaching, even as we facilitate learning, can our learners be able to use the digital devices? Can they be able to use the online platforms, the digital devices, and all that to be able to do some kind of research, to be able to solve the problems that they have, to be able to learn further, and even to be able to connect with each other. So those are the kind of issues we are talking. And then again, issues of safety should also be observed, because online again has also become a challenge. Even as they use ICT as part of a tool to learn, then safety issues also should be taken into consideration. The learning to learn that we are saying, our learners should also be eager to learn at every given opportunity, that they're not just encountering experiences for the sake of it, that every opportunity, every encounter should be a kind of a learning opportunity, so that they desire to learn. After learning at school, are they able to learn further? Are they able to probe more in terms of what information they have got, such that learning does not stop within the four walls of the classroom, so that they continue learning and learning further. Every moment they have that urge to continue seeking knowledge. Then there is self-efficacy. We are saying that our learners, and especially from every kind of age, right from childhood to adolescent stage, where we are talking about a secondary education, self-efficacy is a very, very key competency. So we need to provide opportunities that will expose the learners in a manner that they are able to express themselves, they are able to believe in themselves, they are able to complete a task and also feel that what they have done, they have achieved a goal, they have achieved an objective. Just as Dr. Cosmas was putting it, that we have to give the task to learners to be able to complete, to be able to achieve them, and to be able to be able to assess them. Now, this I think Dr. Cosmas has presented to us that according to Cole, the cycle of experiential learning has those kind of stages. I don't want to repeat that because this is what we are really applying, especially in our case in Kenya, what Cole talked about in terms of experiential learning. So we are saying that there are basic kind of elements according to Cole and experiential learning, that it combines direct experience with focused reflection. And again, we are saying it builds on past knowledge and experiences, that when learners come to school, we connect what they have learned and what they can learn in terms of the new experiences, so that they're not just learning something that is non-existent, something that they can experience, something that they have been experiencing. Then it requires the active involvement in meaning and construction. I like what he said, the learner-centered approach, and this is what we are emphasizing on, that the learner is the center of the learning process, so that the learner is actively engaged and the teacher is only a facilitator of the learning process. We are also saying in the experiential learning, collaboration and exchange of ideas is very, very key. And that is why one of our core competencies is communication and collaboration, such that learners learn together, they discuss issues. Once they discuss, they are able to even present issues to each other or to a group and another. They are able to critique each other ideas, and so they are able to come into a consensus and agree that this is the solution to whatever they are doing, or that is the kind of way to go. Then we are saying that this learning can also take place anywhere, as I started in my presentation. So in secondary school curriculum, we are saying that learners are engaged intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically by making sure that they are involved in what we call authentic tasks, which are also learner-centered. And what do we mean by authentic tasks here? We mean tasks that can be applied in real life situations, that what the learners are learning is not something that cannot be applied in their real life situations. The kind of subjects they're learning, in the contents that they're also learning, it should be able to relate with the real life situation. That if I am teaching mathematics, I am teaching like what I'm saying, social studies or maybe history and citizenship. Is it applicable to a real situation? Maybe I'm talking about human diversity and inclusion, for instance. Are there issues that make society not maybe to live together, maybe not be able to coexist? And for our situation in Kenya, that is a real practical example that we have so many, of course, ethnic groups. And so we are saying, how can we address such kind of a situation? And we are saying, in terms of maybe history and citizenship, kind of a topic like human diversity and inclusion, when learners learn ways of staying together, ways of coexisting, we can be able to ask learners to be able to come up with ways that can help us to coexist as the 42 kind of ethnic groups and all that. So how do we make that then learner-centered? By making sure that learners are engaged in those kind of debates, they are engaged on those kind of discussions. They can also have a kind of civic engagement, even with people within the community, and so they can be able to chart a way forward, even on how they can coexist. Other than that, we are also saying that a curriculum should also be able to nurture the values that we'd like to see or would like our learners to be able to portray. What are the kind of values that we want our learners to exemplify at the end of the day, such that, yes, we are equipping them with knowledge, yes, we are equipping them with content, but are we really taking care of the values that as a society we need to see in our learners or in our society? For us, we believe that if we have a transformed learner, then we are going to have a transformed society. So we are saying that values are a pillar in the competency-based curriculum in Kenya. In fact, it is one of the pillars as stipulated in the curriculum, in the competency-based curriculum. So through the formal curriculum where learners learn in class, these values are integrated in the learning subjects. Then in the non-formal programs where learners now learn in terms of going for games, going for sports, they are going for maybe clubs and all that. We are saying that they need also to exemplify these kind of values. And we are saying even as they're doing what they're doing outside the classroom, then they should also be nurturing and inculcating these values. Then the informal curriculum, I like calling it the hidden curriculum because of the sense that this is learning that happens incidentally. That as a teacher, if I walk to class and I'm greeting learners, I greet learners or fail to greet learners, or in the way I express myself, already they learn something from me, that they'll learn either respect, they will learn either disrespect, according to the way I present myself, even before I present my content. So we are saying that these two dimensions of the curriculum, the non-formal and the informal curriculum, are also very important, especially when it comes to nurturing the values that we want to see among our learners. I was giving an example the other day to a group of people that want us to incorporate what we call gender responsive kind of pedagogies. And they are saying, if I am really concerned about being very gender responsive, before I even get into the content I want to teach, and then I realize in front of my classroom, there is a kind of maybe of a table that I want it removed. If I am addressing these boys and girls as learners in a class, then I need to make sure that I'm also giving learners an opportunity for them to be able to participate in removing the table, both boys and girls. But if I go to class and then say that, can I have maybe 3 boys who can come and remove this table? What will what will I impact to the girls? They will see me, they will see that only boys can be able to do such kind of tasks. You know, I've not even started teaching. I've not even started explaining about the outcomes of my teaching, but already they have learned something. Even as they go home, they will know that boys are the ones that are supposed to do such kind of a work. Or maybe I go to class and I realize the class is dirty. Then I tell the boys, can you step aside and allow the girls to sweep? That means I'm also not very keen that this is kind of work that needs to be done by both boys and girls. And so even as I teach my content, already in the informal dimension of the curriculum, which happens incidentally, as a teacher, there is learning that I've already facilitated, which is not good learning, for lack of a better word, because I have put across the minds to the minds of the boys that means sweeping belongs to the girls and not to the boys. So we need to be very, very keen. And that is why for us in Kenya, the 3 dimensions for us are very key in developing the core competencies and also in nurturing values, alongside also addressing the kind of issues that the learners are grappling with in their daily life. So they're very, very core. The core competencies that we have integrated in the curriculum include integrity, include love, responsibility, respect, unity, peace, patriotism, social justice. Maybe I can ask, let me ask from the flow. Is there any kind of an issue you're having in terms of the values? For us in Kenya, a value like integrity is really a problem, and we are really trying our best, and that's why we are integrating this value even in the curriculum. The value of respect is also another challenge. Maybe I can ask from the floor whether you are grappling with behavioral crisis, so that we try, as we also continue in these reforms in competency-based curriculum, we are also emphasizing on acquisition of the values. Anyone with an experience, maybe from any country? Anyone? Hello? Hello? Hello, people.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, I'm asking whether you have
Hello.
issues with behavior.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm asking whether you have issues with values, even in your society or in your countries where you come from.
Maybe a question.
Yes, please.
It is good to have such these values, but I wonder the way that we can assess this, whether these values are desired by the learners or not. Do we have a way that we can assess these values? That is my question.
Yeah, there is a way. Thank you so much for that. There is a way we can assess these values. For instance, if you look at the value of, let's say, respect. If you want to assess the value of respect among learners, because we have said, and what Dr. Cosmas was explaining, is that in experiential learning or in competency-based curriculum, it's about the experiences that the learning are exposed to. So if we want to assess the value of respect when the learners have, acquired this value of respect, then they are indicators of respect. For instance, one of them is where they are able to take turns even when they are communicating. Are they able to take turns? One of the areas in terms of assessment, and I'd like now, because you brought the issue of assessment, I'd like to pinpoint here, is that for us in CBC in Kenya, we have what we call assessment as learning. And we are saying that assessment as learning is when assessment is done as the process of learning is taking place. That as I do my lesson, then I'm assessing what learners are able to acquire. That I can give them a question, I can give them a quiz, and they continue. I continue seeing whether they are getting what we are saying. Apart from that, there is assessment for learning, whereby the learners themselves are able to also critique each other. They are able to learn from one another. They are able to do peer assessment and all that. Then the last one is assessment of learning, where learning now is, assessment is done at the end, maybe of a term, maybe the end of a year, and so forth. So for us in Kenya, when we are talking about assessment of these values, then we look at the indicators of these values. For instance, I've said respect. We can look at indicators like, is this learner able to take turns when communicating? Is the learner able to make sure they give each other an opportunity to take turns, so that they don't talk together at the same time, but they're giving each other an opportunity? Are they able to use words like, such kind of words, so that it is not like, a confrontational kind of words and all that? So those are the kind of indicators that we use, especially in terms of assessing these values. So values are accessible. I don't know whether I've answered you as I continue.
So that means it is by observation and by research.
Exactly. Most of it is by observation, because you know, for these values, they are inculcated, they are caught as learners are learning, and then they are observable as learners interact with one another in the learning process and in those dimensions that I talked about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So as I was also looking at this,
Hello?
because we were talking about coming up with a, yes, please.
Yeah, this is Philomen. I just have some light to throw. Philomen from the Gambia. Thank you for your wonderful deliberation on values. In our country here, to speak, we have gaps when it comes to societal values. And I think in order to teach the learners the societal values, we have a long way to go and a lot to do.
Yes, we have lost you. Hello? Have we lost you? Hello?
You cannot teach students values if hello, are you hearing me?
Hello? Yes,
are you
now I
hearing
can
me?
get you. Yes, I can get you
hearing
now.
you. Hello?
I can get you now.
Hello? Yeah, I'm hearing you too. Yes, I'm also getting you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is it's good that you come up with this issue of value, but then in teaching values, I think in our own African context, we have a long way to go, and we have a lot to do when it comes to the teaching of values. Are you getting me clearly?
Yes, I can get
Hello?
you. Yes, yes.
Good. Now, what I mentioned is in teaching the values that you've just mentioned, or the values we have on the screen, it's good that you first have the teacher understand what these values meant and what these values will also do for kids by you getting yourself first, okay, in the position of the values. But as a teacher without the values that you've just mentioned, I think it's going to be difficult for just to be mentioning about the values when the teachers out there to teach the values are not with those moral values that are required for students to have as competencies.
Thank you very much for that. That is very true. If the teacher does not exemplify the values that you're talking about, then again, it's very difficult for learners to emulate the same values. So for us in Kenya, we have integrated these values in the curriculum in the sense that the teacher has to provide experiences that will enable learners to inculcate, to nurture values of respect, responsibility, and all that. For instance, if you organize learning experiences where learners are going to work in groups, then you can see values like responsibility coming in, because we are going to have a leader of the group, and a leader must carry out the tasks of a leader. Then other than that, each one will be given tasks. And so as we give each learner a task, then we ensure that each learner has completed a task. And so for us to say that a learner has those kind of values like responsibility, then those kind of tasks need to be completed, and they have to carry out their duties assigned as the way it is required for them. So we are saying that this one is not assessed in the way it is like responsibility, the way we are seeing it. It has those kind of indicators. I wish I had time. Maybe I could share further on that, but that is basically what we do in Kenya. And apart from that, I heard you talking about the values, especially in the society, and you're also grappling with that issue, the behavioral crisis that you're having outside there. And we are saying the competency-based curriculum should be able to help address some of these societal challenges, one of them being behavioral crisis. And that is why for us in Kenya, this integration of values in the curriculum was very, very key. We were informed, of course, by a study that was done. And you're saying, yes, we were told, yes, you are really teaching content learners are passing, but even as they pass and go outside there with the clean A's, for us, the best grade is an A. And so they will go outside there with that grade. But then in terms of values, even courtesy itself is really a problem. So that is why after that kind of information, after that kind of feedback we got, then we realized we need to do something, especially in terms of integrating these values in the curriculum. We are also coming up with a program called values-based education. And we are saying now a teacher will be able to exemplify these values, for instance, be able to inculcate these values in the learner, be able to design experiences that will help learners to acquire these values. But again, when they go back home, who do they meet? The society. Are the societies really able to understand these values? Who are these other people in the school community? So we are saying again, we need to come up with what we call a whole school approach, where we are bringing every key player in the school community to really know and understand that these are the values. They also exemplify the same values, even the kind of support staff that you have around, and even the parents. And that is why for us, again, in CBC, that parental empowerment and engagement is a key component, that parents are key players in the education of these learners. We cannot talk about teaching these learners without the role of the parents. So parents really need to be engaged in every process of learning. That is why when you're talking about values-based learning, we want to bring everybody on board, so that as a teacher, even if you're trying much to make sure you inculcate values in the learners, if the parents also do not support this or are not even aware of what is happening, then again, we're going to lose it. So for us, we have come up with that program known as values-based learning, where every key player in the school community participates in exemplifying these values, such that everybody in the community exemplifies the values for the learners to be able to acquire them. Now, we are talking about lesson plans, but before we go to the lesson plans, for us, this is how we are doing it. For instance, we can see the topic here, people and population, and the subtopic, social, cultural diversity and inclusion. You can see the learning outcomes as Dr. Cosmas was presenting. For the learning outcomes, we mainly make sure that the learning outcomes are in 3 domains. First of all, they should be addressing what we call the cognitive domain, that the learners must be able to acquire knowledge. I remember when you were speaking, you said CBC must have content, and that is what we are talking about. What is the content that the learners are learning so that they are able to gain knowledge? And then the other one is the psychomotor domain. So an outcome also should make sure it addresses the psychomotor domain of the learner, the doing part. You remember, experiential learning is about doing. So what are they able to do in terms of the knowledge already they have acquired? Are they able to put it into practice? And then the other one is the affective domain. Remember where I've come from? I've mentioned about the values and all that. Are they able now to be transformed behaviorally from what they have learned, such that we also have a transformed society and not just acquiring knowledge for the sake of acquiring? You can see the learning outcomes there. They're able to explain what is social cultural diversity. And then that one is now addressing the cognitive domain. Then they're able to participate in promoting respect for social cultural diversities and inclusion in the society. When they're participating now, it is the doing part. And then embrace various social cultural diversities and inclusion, the affective. That's a long-term kind of an outcome, then comes out as the learners have participated in that, then they are able to be transformed. Look at the learning experiences. The teacher has to come up with those kind of learning experiences that will engage the learner. I remember when Dr. Cosmas was presenting on experiential learning, one of the areas he talked about the group work. Let learners brainstorm, discuss, and all that. Can they use what we call the digital or the print resources? And for us, as Kenyans, we are saying, we don't just tell the teacher now to make sure that they do, they tell the learners to come up, I mean, to do work using the digital devices without providing an alternative, because we also are very, very
Mary,
aware
I
and
think you
appreciate
can
the
summarize
fact
so
that,
because of time.
pardon?
Because of time, maybe you can summarize.
Because of time. Yes. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so that is actually how we do it. And you can see for us, the learning, the core competencies, the way now they're embedded in the curriculum design, values as they're coming out when they're debating, are they able to respect one another? Then the pertinent and contemporary issues, the issues that learners are grappling with, they should also be addressed in the, by the learning experiences that the learners are going through. Then we can talk about the types of experiential learning, and these ones are the ones that I was talking about when I was talking about the learning experiences. You can see research debates and all that. Those are incorporated in our curriculum designs so that the teacher provides an opportunity for the learner to be able to develop the competencies and to be able to practice what they have learned in class. I'd like to talk about this component we are talking about, known as service learning, which is really, really part of learning in Kenya. We have integrated community service learning in the lower levels, where learners are able to apply what they have learned in class in a way they can address a real need in the community. For instance, maybe it's an environmental issue. Environmental degradation to us as Kenyans is really a challenge. Can they apply what they have learned to be able to address that kind of an environmental challenge? So community service learning is a very, very key component for us as a Kenyan in terms of CBC. At secondary level, because that's where we are talking about, community service learning is a standalone subject when it gets to senior school, such that even if you're taking any of the pathways, maybe you're taking sciences, you're taking social sciences, or any kind of a pathway you're taking, community service learning is compulsory for every learner, such that the kind of education or the kind of knowledge that the learners are learning then should help them to solve the real life problems they are facing in the society. And that is about experiential learning. So the benefits of experiential learning, I don't want to repeat this because already Dr. Cosmas talked about them, making learning relatable and all that, linking theory to practice. It increases effectiveness to learning and also increases learners' engagement, because we are saying that learning is learner-centered, especially if we really want to achieve what we are calling competency-based curriculum through experiential learning. Thank you so very much. Thank you for listening. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, very much, for your enlightening and entertaining presentation on Kenya experience on designing a competence-based curriculum. You have talked very important issues, and the most important thing you have mentioned about excuse me, okay, so thank you. I just wanted to mention that if you can take away your screen. Yeah, you have mentioned a very important issue, and you have placed our learner as a center of the learning process. And this, I think, you have tried even to connect of our presentation about the philosophy of constructivism, that the learner, the knowledge can be constructed by the learner. So the following presentation, following session was about plenary session to reflect on Kenya presentation. So please remember, I think in this session, we can move it to blackout session. So after hearing the presentation about framework to guide the development of CBC lesson, then we can combine our reflection on what we heard from Kenya's experience and the framework that can be guide to develop a CBC lesson. So I wanted to welcome my colleagues, Mr. Enea and Dr. Calvin, to take us through the lesson plan. Welcome. Hello, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Dr. Fika. I'm now sharing my screen. Sorry, I'm struggling to. Can you now see my screen, Dr. Fika?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Yes, sorry for that, and thank you for inviting me to make a very brief presentation with regard to lesson planning for competence-based education. And I think most of the things have been talked about by my friends, and I'm going to briefly take you through the lesson planning, but most importantly, to think about the guiding philosophy behind what we prepare or the lesson plan. So as you well aware, as you start to think about, as a teacher start to think about this lesson plan, should be guided by a particular framework. And out there, we have so many frameworks that can guide teachers to prepare a lesson. And for this case, we have around 4 that we'd like to introduce to you. I think most of us might be aware of these frameworks. And the first one is called RCA, which is the abbreviation of reflect, connect, and apply. And the interesting part of this one is the fact that the teacher thinks about 3 parts of the session, of the lesson, by having some particular activities for students or learners to reflect. And the second part is for activities for students to connect what they have reflected on with regard to the lesson that they are learning. And the third part on this framework has to do with application. So teacher create activities for learners to make sure that they apply what they have learned. So this is RCA model. 3 parts just for teachers to think about as they prepare their lesson. The second framework is called ERGA, or here in Tanzania, most of us called IGA model. And this has 4 parts. The first activity designed by a teacher for students to experience something. It might be a video clip, it might be a discussion, it might be a study tour. It's a learning activity, really. And for the second part, the teacher designed activities for students to reflect on what they have experienced. The third one is generalization, which has to do with a teacher designing activities which broaden students' understanding after reflecting on their experience. And the last part, which is application, has to do with connecting what has been learned in the classroom to real life experiences. And this framework is inspired by the Kolb experiential learning cycle, which has been already talked about my colleagues, and I won't be able to repeat it because I think they have explained it very well. Another model, and for the last one, I would like to invite Mr. Muhando just to provide us with a big picture of the 2 frameworks that have been presented there. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What I can say is that a lot has been represented by Nelly, and then Dr. Cosmas also contributed a lot. And then, as Karen said, we really don't have to repeat too much, but that's a presentation which can help us see how we run from introduction to development to design and then realization. Coming down to the frameworks that have been explained by Kevin, looking at the frameworks that have been presented by Kevin, we get the suggestion that there are so many ways of developing lesson plans. We don't have only one way of developing a lesson plan. But what underlines is that we have to have pre-understanding, and then we have to have activity to be developed, that is the processing. And then we have to come to application. And we should realize that in CBC, applied competence becomes very important, because if they don't apply, then the things become realistic to life. And at the end, when we conclude, we find that it's very important for us to see not only mastery of knowledge that has been developed, not only again what has come into learning, how to learn, but also to look at values. As Nelly said, it's very important to concentrate on the values that are developed in order to make a person a real person, complete individual, as Cosmas said. So it's important the whole person. The model we have here, but starts with an introduction. And the subject that we have is in environmental studies. Let me give us an example and say that in Kenya, they have been successful with the example of the environmental studies. Here we try to have our competence as determining, control, or pollution. And it is in lower secondary grades. We have introduction, and in the introduction, we try to have exposition by engaging learners in groups to find out what happens in subject matter. And we use a framework which is already explained, and that is the KWL. What I know, what I want to know, what I shall have learned, and then how I shall use it. This can help. And then we have another suggestion of our framework, the 6WHE, where which asks, what is it? Where is it from? When does it happen? Who benefits? Who are the actors? Who are the actors? And then why is this started? How is it done? And at what environment? So you find that we have to create a very strong base in soliciting the pre-understanding. This is very important. But also, we see that it is important to focus on not only the activities, but also look at the conclusion. When we conclude a lesson, we have to make sure that not only what has been done, but we try as much as possible to look at several aspects to be covered as to how lesson was conducted. And we can also use the 21st century skills to see if they've been covered, like critical thinking, creativity, has it been covered, communication, collaboration. But we can also expand in terms of life skills, to look at the interpersonal skills. Have they been developed? Intrapersonal skills, I mean, turning towards oneself. And then interpersonal skills, looking at others. Have these been developed? Cognitive skills, have they been developed? Now, in our example here, you find that we're trying to have our students prepare for an excursion. And this excursion is about sensitizing the community about environmental pollution. And definitely at the end, they'll have to plan for cleaning the market. So we have an introduction which exposes and engages, and these groups discuss. And then in the development of the lesson, we have learning together as a method. By learning together, students get clippings. They get clippings from texts, and then they read them. And after reading them, they find that they gather the facts, and then the teacher can conduct a plenary session to coordinate the group's meanings that they made. It is important to help the learners make their own meanings from what they have read and what they have exchanged. And then after that, we have the design level, or the stage, which is stage number 3, that they plan now for an excursion on environmental pollution. And this might help them when they visit the local market to mobilize the vendors for control of pollution. Now, you can see the groups will have maybe to address themselves and to make them known as young friends of the market. They can visit the market, and then they can find out how the groups can plan for possible areas to be observed during the excursion, because this is a planning activity. And then the groups will have to plan for possible contacts and methods to mobilize the vendors, because it's not easy just to bump into the vendors in the market. This has to be organized, and the teacher has to help them to get this put together. Now, realization actually becomes like the product. The facilitator leads the discussion to link the discussed plans into one particular plan. This is very important. And you can see design is intention, and then realization is a result. So it results in a plan. You see a plan that they can help right in the hand. And when we come to the closure, it becomes very short. We have just about 5 minutes here, and they can decide to use whatever they want to use. But as we said, it's important to note that the 4 C's and life skills have been covered. There are many ways of closing a lesson. However, examples can be seen as follows: maybe questions and answers, clarification or emerging issues, noting the growth from design and realization, and many other ways of closing the lesson. But what we emphasize on is that the 4 C's or life skills are addressed. Thank you very much. We're pressed for time, so I had to rush you through the lesson plan. But this is not the only way to make a lesson plan. The frameworks that you choose can guide you as to how you can design your lesson plan. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muhando, for your presentation. And this, I think, is already shared in our Google Doc link and also will be shared. And now maybe I welcome Secretariat for some short time so that people can have a discussion in the plenary session. Of course, the time is about over. I don't know how we can work. Maybe back to Secretariat for some more matters. Marian? Angela Arnott, there's Angela Arnott, please. I think you have raised the hand for so long, and Philemon. You have something
Thank
to
you.
say?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick word. I have put some comments in the chat box, but I think, with the shift towards ICTs and digitalization of education, we have to start becoming more proactive in promoting the integration of ICTs in the classroom. And particularly if we can improve the quality of lesson plans across the board. And one way in which this is being done in Kenya and in a number of countries through some initiatives focused on the UNESCO ICT competency framework for teachers is that you get teachers to create their lesson plans and then to provide the lesson plan on a platform so that any teacher teaching that particular topic for that particular grade can review other teachers' lesson plans. And in that way, you can begin to improve the quality, because one of the aspects of this is to try encourage the teacher to link up to some content that they can access from the internet, as well as ideally, if there is equipment available, present their lesson to their learners using some sort of ICT technology. And that's proving to make significant improvements in the quality of teaching and learning, as well as supporting remote teaching and learning, which is the situation that we've been experiencing recently. So just to make that comment, but thank you very much for all those interesting presentations, particularly like the one on values. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you so much, Angela. And that is very important. And we know the next session will be integrating ICT. But yes, we find that it is important that we have heard from you about these important issues related to lesson plan. Lesson plan now should not be a secret, should be available for everyone, including the one who is learning. Maybe Philemon, if you have something before Marian, I know is ready to talk something first.
No, the hand has been there for long. Already I've spoken when the presenter on values ended. I also gave my contribution about the Gambian situation on values. Hello.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, because you left we felt that you
yes, I said
put down
I've already spoke. Yeah, it has been there for long. I already gave my contribution. And what I said was on values, we have a long way to go here in the Gambia, and I also mentioned that in teaching values, teachers also need a lot to do with regards to their own selves. You can continue with the other person, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, because of the issue of time, and we can continue sharing our experiences in other platforms. And let me take this time to thank you very much for very constructive contributions that you have made, both in the chat box. If you read, there are a lot of nice contributions about how we are going to implement this CBC. That is welcome, and we continue to welcome you to continue with our discussions also in the WhatsApp and the other platforms that have been created. And now, welcome Marian for Secretarial Matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Cosmos. And I want to echo what you've said, that it was really a great discussion today, and everyone contributed so well and so much, both in the chat box and also verbally. So thank you to everybody. This was really a great discussion, and I hope that all sessions have discussions like this or even more enriching. We heard a lot of different perspectives today. There were also some interesting ideas in the chat box that we didn't fully get to today. Like, for example, someone has said that CBC is more appropriate in certain subjects and not all subjects. And then others were saying that it can be applied to all subjects. So it would be very interesting to to give some reasoning for our stances when we take a stance like that. So it was interesting to see perspectives and that, but also I think when we're debating or discussing these issues, we can try to come up with reasons for that, because I was interested in hearing from the gentleman. I think it was someone who said that CBC is better in science. So in fact, maybe we could end with anybody who would like to give any final comments on something that they've learned today, or something that has changed their thinking or enriched their thinking. Does anybody want to comment before we wrap up on anything that they've learned today?
Yes, Marianne, maybe, can you hear me?
Yes, is that Joe? Joe from Liberia?
Yes. Liberia, yes. So I just
yes, go ahead.
wanted to commend the team. I think the presentation today is fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed the part that has to do with the core values. Particularly when the presenter talks about nationalism and the issue of social justice, So what we've done in Liberia as part of our competency-based curriculum, we have now integrated the teaching of civics. So particularly is about government. So as early as at the primary level, even grade 1, we teach the kids to understand some basic elements, of government. So they are growing with that understanding of what it means, to have a good governance system, for example. So they now understand their rights. They have been taught human rights, and so forth. So I think it's very important, and I thought that it was a great presentation, and all of the practical examples and given today. I can only appreciate the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. I echo what you've said. Great. Thank you so much. I saw there was a hand from, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Saulos. Saulos, I saw your hand was up. It just came down. Did you want to say something?
Oh, yes. In fact, I just wanted to say it's been very practical lessons today. I've enjoyed so much. I just wanted to appeal, if possible, because the content that we've learned this afternoon is so practical. I would like to have the sessions as well shared, be it on WhatsApp. I think that would assist much. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. We will certainly share them. As you know, we have a dynamic WhatsApp group going. We keep adding people each week to the WhatsApp group, and we also have a Google folder. The link will be shared perhaps again by Cosmos today. The folder is going to have all the resources, the presentations, the recordings, everything. So you're welcome to access that. Olive, I see a hand from you. Would you like to go?
Yes, I was going to suggest that we also have people on board who are practitioners so that we also know what is happening on the ground, so that you're not making just presentations. They're also telling us whether what we plan is also workable. What are the experiences they have? Thank you.
Yes, Olive. In fact, this is a good time to bring this up. As you know, this is a community of practice. You are the practitioners, you are the community. So in a way, the practical element will be what you all end up doing with these ideas. However, there's also practitioners who are implementing and actually teaching at the classroom level right now. It might be very interesting if you want to bring in a colleague who is actually implementing competency-based curriculum, say at a classroom level, maybe in a teacher training institute or a teacher's college, or even at the classroom level itself with students. I think it'd be very interesting if some of you want to bring in a teacher, a practitioner as a guest for the day in a future session to one of the topics. You're most welcome to. They may not be present for all the sessions that have already happened or that will happen. But if you think that some of them need to be part of this community of practice, by all means, I think you're welcome to invite them, especially if it pertains to a certain topic that you think they can benefit from. And all the topics, the 8 topics are there ahead of time in WhatsApp and on email, so you can see the topics ahead of time. Like, for example, I think ICT is next week. So because you are the community, it's really your group. This is not my group. It's not the Tanzania Institute of Education's group. This is not UNESCO's group. This is your group. And I hope it continues even after we have these 8 workshops, but it continues on WhatsApp. So please feel free to bring in a teacher practitioner if you want to share the experience with somebody else and bring them in for a day or two. I see there's a hand from Maret Sepil. I hope I didn't say your name incorrectly. Would you like to go? Your hand's been up for a few minutes.
Hello, yes. I would like to thank the presenters very much for this. We learned a lot from this presentation, but I still need clarity on Nelly's presentation about them assessing the values. I think we still have that problem here in Lesotho of assessing the soft skills. That is for learners to show that they are respectful, they have love, they have that patriotism. You cannot conclude in one instance that a learner has that. So I think it needs some profile. So I need a clarity on how they are going about it in Kenya. To say that, to write on learner's report, maybe to say that this learner has this values. That's the clarity that I need. Maybe I'll get the answer from the WhatsApp. I've joined the WhatsApp group. Thank you.
Yes, that's a very good question. Would you please ask that question in the WhatsApp group? You've just been added to the WhatsApp group, and Nelly also needs to be added or connected with you. I think this would be a very good chance for a follow-up, maybe a one-on-one discussion. But we will make sure that your question gets answered. So please ask in the WhatsApp group and put it there. It's our parking lot for discussion points and questions. Lastly, before we start to wrap up, and I just want to draw your attention, everyone, back to the assignment for this learning series, for this course. As you know, that there will be certificates issued by UNESCO ICPA, by my organization, and to actually earn a certificate, there is you have to attend 7 out of the 8 sessions, or at least do the work for 7 out of 8 sessions. Watch the recordings and then email us a summary of your perspectives on that session of the day that you missed. But also you have to do this long-term assignment. It's actually it's not difficult. It's meant to be very practical for you. Again, you are the community, you are the practitioners, you are the policymakers who will be enacting some element of your learning in your place of practice, wherever you work. So I want to draw your attention back to this, just to make sure that you do see this and that you are working on it. This has to be submitted 1 week after the last session by August 4th. So you can work on it every week during the session, after the session, before the session, whenever you'd like to, because you are professionals and you have your own schedules. You can also take notes in the document during the session as well. So please be aware of this, that we are expecting to get this from you 1 week after the last session ends on by August 4th, 1 week after, okay? And you saw the instructions already that you have to pick up 1 or 2 of these 8 topics based on your own area of specialization. And then you have to answer 4 reflective questions about those 1 or 2 topics. So it really is going to be up to you. You don't have to do all 8 topics. You can do as many as you want, but the minimum is at least 1 of these topics. The recommended 1 or 2 topics. But you may even want to do 5 or 6, depending on how many topics you have been learning about, where you feel you can implement some change. And the key thing here is to prepare a plan on how you will introduce change or reform in this particular topic. So colleagues, that's it. I wanted to show you this document again. I'm sure there are some questions about it. Okay, and if you haven't seen it yet, we will make sure that it's in the Google Drive folder, but you do have to download it as a file, download the Word document and begin typing in it, and then submit it by August 4th. That's how you earn a certificate. There's a hand up from Marit Sepil. Do you want to say something else?
No.
Okay. Colleagues, any more comments, any more questions before we wrap up today? Please take the survey. The survey is in the chat box. We want to hear from you about what you've learned and what suggestions you have to improve next week's session. Hundasa has shared it. My colleague Hundasa in the chat box has shared the link. So please do take the survey, and we look forward to seeing all of you next Thursday. So I'll just end with some of the great music that we always like to begin and end on. And you can begin logging out, and we will see you next week.
Old pirate, yes, the rabbi, sold I to the Martian ships. Minute after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing another songs of freedom? It's all I ever heard. Redemption song, redemption song.
Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. 'cause none of them can stop the time. And how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? And some said it's just a part of it. Well, we've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing another song of freedom? It's all I ever had. Redemption song, yes Lord. Redemption song. Redemption song. Wop choo wop choo wop. Come on with me, people. Wop choo wop choo wop. Come on with me, children. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. So won't you help me sing another song of freedom? It's all I ever had. Oh, redemption song, yes Lord. Redemption song. Redemption song. Redemption song. Songs of freedom.
If I could ask the facilitators from the TIE to stay back, please, and Hundessa and my colleagues from UNESCO will just do a quick reflective session before we end for the day. Thank you, everyone. You can leave now. Thank you so much for joining, and we really hope to see you next Thursday as well. Bye. Thank you for joining. See you next Thursday.